All right, today we're gabbing with Danny Pellegrino, host of the podcast Everything Iconic, one of the stars of the Hallmark Channel's Deck the Walls, guest star on the recent Simple Life reunion, Paris and Nicole of the Encore, author of multiple books, all around King icon legend. Danny, it's great to have you back. How are you?
Hi, I'm so happy to be chatting with you. And we do have so much to talk about in the Housewives world, so I'm happy to be here.
Well, first of all, I said it off there, but congratulations. You recently announced that you are bringing a child into this world, and it is so exciting. You went on the Drew Barrymore show and announced it. Tell me about that. For people that somehow maybe missed that announcement, just tell me about
Oh,
that exciting news.
thank you. Yeah, we're super excited. I was going on the Drew show to talk about Deck the Walls, and when I was doing like the pre-interview call, the producer just sort of brought up or was asking me questions. They sort of ask you a bunch of things to get an idea of what the segment will be or where you'll go or whatever. And they were talking about traditions for the holiday. And my boyfriend and I, we had just come from an appointment with the doctor, and it just sort of was blurted out. And then the producer was like, "Oh, wait, have you told anyone that?" I was like, "No," but we're now at the time where we're starting to tell other people. We had told close friends and family, of
Hmm.
course, but so it just felt like a fun kind of weird fit to do it over on the
Yeah.
Drew show, but it was so exciting, and everybody's been so kind, and we're really thrilled and over the moon. So our baby's due in the summertime, and we're still trying to figure out exactly like what we're comfortable sharing and all of that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. But yeah, we're excited that we are expecting in June.
That's so exciting. And it's one of those things where it's like you've commentated for so long on other people's lives, you know what I mean? But because people feel so close to you, your listeners feel so close to you, it's like they want these updates too on your life, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, I love to do that on my show. I
Yeah.
think where I get nervous is like, on my show, you can kind of have control over
Yeah.
things, um, and I think just also dealing with the weird homophobia that comes with the internet.
Hmm.
That's where I get kind of scared with
I get it.
things
Yeah.
because even with that announcement on Drew, it's like I've gotten messages, and 98% have been wonderful and supportive and kind and wonderful. But then there are a lot of people that will send you messages or comment on things that can be very dark. So I feel like we're just trying to protect our peace in
Yeah,
that way.
that's
But
very
but so
smart.
far it's been really wonderful
Yeah.
and kind. So I'm not complaining.
And also, like, I mean, I've read both your books and you come from a big family, and family is obviously very important to you. And I just like, I'm picturing, like, okay, in several years, you can write a sequel to The Jolliest Bunch or your first book where it's just like stories of you being the parent, which is kind of an exciting idea.
I know I never had thought about it before, and as we've been going throughout this process for a really long time, trying to start our family, and so throughout the process, I have been writing a lot, and so maybe one day down the line, there'll be a book of some of these stories and stuff like that. I agree. I would love to. So
Yeah.
hopefully,
Oh, that's
at some
awesome.
point. But I have been
Awesome.
writing throughout the
Good.
process because it is a really crazy. I didn't know much about the process at all,
Hmm.
and a lot of the resources that I found out there, they are a little more technical. And so I think it would be really fun. I mean, that would be the dream or the goal to be able to do something that shows off the process a little bit, but also incorporates humor and
And
levity and kind of all of those things too would be kind of the dream. But I don't have any exact plans to do that, but I have been writing in hopes that
a
maybe
nebulous
down the line.
idea.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Okay, let's talk about Paris and Nicole because I knew this was happening, Danny, and but to see it on Peacock this past weekend was just it was so cool. And it's just a 3 episode kind of like reunion encore thing that they did. But your episode, which is the third episode, they go to Sonic, you guys go on a tour bus together. And that felt to me the most like, I love that episode the most because it felt the most like we were doing the hijinks again with them. You know what I mean? Tell me about what it was like on the ground with Paris and Nicole for that.
Well, it was such a dream come true. Of course, watching them, the first time I filmed was that scene where they pick me up and we go to Sonic.
Yeah.
And originally, like everything kept shifting. So I was originally just supposed to do one little segment with them, talking to them about the original show. And then the role sort of kept expanding. And a couple days before, they were like, "Oh, they're actually going to come to your house and pick you up." And I'm like, "What? They're going to come to my house and pick me up?" And then they're like, "Then you're going to drive to Sonic." And then it became like, when you get there, you might just go to work. And I'm like, "What?" Like, and that was kind of the beauty of it, especially covering reality TV on the podcast, is like getting to be within the mechanics
Hmm.
of it and see how they work. And their show very much the original from what they told me, and then also just from what I experienced, it was like go film and then we'll figure out what it is later, kind of thing,
Yeah.
which I think is where you get the best stuff. But there was so much, and there was so much stuff that I'm like, oh, I wish they could have shown that. We
Hmm.
called my mom on the way.
Oh,
I taught them about, or I taught Paris how to do lottery scratch offs.
oh
Like there
my
was a
God.
lot
I
of
would
like
have
really,
loved to see
there
that.
was so much funny
Yeah.
stuff. But of course, I think because it was three short little episodes and there was only so much they could show, but it was the most fun. And while I was at Sonic, there was moments where I'm looking around. I'm like, I'm in the episode of The Simple Life right now because I watched them work at Sonic, and there was a lot of chaos that happened that was so funny that we just on the final edit, just there's little tiny moments of it, but it was so fun. We shot there for a really long time, and then the tour bus with Kesha, she joined, was so much fun. We were there and there was a lot of craziness that happened there, and then I got to be there for the opera too at the end. But it
Hmm.
was a dream. It was so much fun and they were so silly. And the best part about the whole experience was just like watching their chemistry up close,
Yes.
because we've seen it on television, and I think I always just thought maybe it's all for TV, or maybe they're putting on these characters. And on some level, I think everybody is a little bit. But then also seeing it in person, I'm like, oh my gosh, no, this is just their chemistry. And that first day, we were at Sonic when we were shooting at Sonic, and it was like one of the hottest days of the year. It was so over, I think it was like 105 degrees. On the way to Sonic, we had to keep pulling over because the GoPros in the cars would
Oh my,
overheat. And so we would have
stop.
to, and they couldn't keep the air on because the air
Right. The
would,
noise.
so we had to pull over, I think like two or three times. And then when we were at Sonic, uh, there was like we had of course, our little lunch break, and there wasn't a lot of space. So Paris, Nicole, and I, we were just in the car, the three of us. There were no cameras on, and we just had lunch in the car. And it was just like the best lunch
That's
ever, just to
heaven.
get to chat with them and see that everything that was sort of like on camera is just how they are together as well. So that was cool.
That's the dream moment. And also it's just like it's one of those things where it's like you've gotten so much success in your career, Danny, but it's like that is a moment where it's like, how did I get here? Like how did I
Oh,
wind up
totally.
in an episode of The Simple Life? And you have to like remind yourself, no, it's because you've gotten yourself to this place. It's amazing.
Gibson, yeah, and that night, the night after Sonic, I got home and I was on cloud nine, weirdly, it sort of lined up with a lot of our surrogacy journey that I talked about. But
Uh-huh.
that day, I got home, I was on I was so happy and excited, and I thought like that was the most fun ever. I can't believe I got to do that, and I thought that was it. And then next day or something, they were like, "Oh, would you want to come on this Hollywood tour bus?" And then I was like, "Are you
It
kidding?
kept
I get to
going.
do that again?" And then they asked me to do the opera. So it kind of kept building. I was originally just supposed to do one little tiny thing. And then
It's
I was so
amazing.
happy because it felt like a dream come true at Sonic. And then the fact that I got to kind of like go do it again was the best.
Well, it means it
Yeah.
went well. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, yeah. And
I
like
watched it.
to
And
me,
at the opera too, I just watched the episode, and at the opera, I remember thinking, because there was no rules or no one really was telling me what to do or any of us what to do.
right,
It was just like they were filming
free
shit.
for all.
And so even at the opera, I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I didn't know if I was like supposed to be completely hosting this event, or am I supposed to be talking? I knew they were backstage. And I remember thinking in my head, like, oh, they'll edit this. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I have to like look calm, cool, and collected. But I was out at the opera, like in front of the people for a long time as they were backstage and all the chaos was going on. And I was just had to vamp with the audience. And so I was like interviewing the audience. I chatted with Kathy, like she
Yep.
was front row. And but I remember thinking in my head, like, don't let them edit you into looking completely. And so you see me kind of sweating for a minute, but I just was very conscious of that. Like, oh, they'll make it look like I'm incompetent. So
They'll
don't let it.
enhance any little thing, right? Exactly, exactly. And it's like, I mean, I remember, I think you've had Nicole on your show, right? On everything iconic. And it's like, and I'm sure you said this then, but it's like Nicole, and I believe this is like really one of the best comedic
Funniest
like
fucking
talents
person.
of like this era that we're in. And she just has never she's had these little moments where like 2 to 3 year projects that she's able to sort of showcase that. But it just makes you think yet again, like why can't there be a Nicole Richie vehicle that just goes on for a decade? You know what I mean?
Gibson, she's so quick-witted. She's so
Oh,
funny. She's truly a comedian. Like she's hilarious, naturally
oh,
funny, and I think Paris is so wonderful in so many ways too.
oh
But
yeah.
it's that chemistry. And because Nicole's so whip smart, I think that makes it really especially funny.
Well, I think Paris's big talent is like is the public image of it all and like just maintaining that. And I feel like it must have what was it surreal? Last question about this. Was it surreal? Because I remember her reality show for Peacock, Paris in Love, she kind of will go in and out of the character with the voice, like in the middle of a sentence. Was it surreal kind of seeing that in person too?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And we talk a little bit about that. And we did when we were doing the car ride over. There was so much that was cut. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
there was like a much longer interview that happened kind of in the car about the original series that I thought would have been really wonderful and fun for people to hear about. But of course, like I said, it's condensed down. But um, yeah, it was cool. All of those mechanics were cool.
Yeah.
Even with Kathy, because coming from the Housewives world, I got to talk to her a little bit, and you see a quick little moment of me walking her in or whatever. But I did also chat with Kathy a little bit longer too, and I thought with Kathy, I'm like, oh, is she just putting on this act? And I think we all kind of maybe give them too much credit for putting on
Right.
an act. And there might
Right,
be
right.
some little portion of a character, but
Sure.
it made me realize, like, oh, maybe I'm being a conspiracy theorist when I think that they're completely these
Characters.
putting on these
Yeah.
characters when in reality they are just kind of that. But
Mm.
yeah, it was so fun.
Fascinating,
Yeah.
fascinating. And last thing before we get to Housewives, obviously Deck the Walls. I have not seen it yet because
How
I
dare you?
haven't recorded yet. I know I haven't recorded from my parents' DVR virtually, so I'm going to watch it when I go home for the holidays with them.
Thank you.
So we'll watch that. But that is a full circle moment for you because I mean, you've had this podcast that you'll tap into every year where you talk about some of these movies and to be able to star in one again, it's just like it's a cool moment for you knowing like that you love those movies, you know?
Yeah, I could never express properly what that experience was like, or even similar to the Paris and Nicole thing of like being in a moment where you feel like you're living inside of a dream. And I felt that way with Deck the Walls, where I was like looking around on set and I just was so overwhelmed because I love those
Yeah,
cheesy Christmas movies. And I wanted to, and I think we made like a kind of that classic tropey one where big city gal goes home,
so
falls in love
good.
with a hunky construction guy from her youth, and I love that, and I really wanted it to just be like time travel. Somebody can look and see this is like one of those classic ones with just a few little twists, a little LGBTQ stuff, and you know, um, so it was a dream come true. And I don't know if looking around I could ever properly explain what that feeling was like to
Yeah,
be on that, but it was the best. And yeah,
yeah. All right, time for some Bravo chat, Danny.
okay,
I mean, I feel like to me, it's like the thing that I really can't stop thinking about is Salt Lake City, just because of like
perfect.
every episode is a banger. It feels like we're like witnessing an all-time season. Like that's just
I know, and didn't
it's
if and we felt that way last year too.
yeah, yeah,
I felt that
completely.
way. I was like
Yeah,
last year. I thought this was history making. And I
completely.
feel like we even probably talked either on your show or somewhere, but the I remember thinking there's no way they can live up to the last season. They can try, and I'm sure it'll be great. And then to have this season be the follow up and it be so good is just overwhelming.
Because it's like
Amazing.
even if it hadn't surpassed it, it would have they are who they are, and it would have been a good like a quote unquote letdown season from this cast is not a letdown season. You know what I mean?
I
Even if it
know.
isn't reality Von Tease.
I know it's so layered. I think the newbies are fantastic. Watching Mary kind of open up in ways that we hadn't seen before is fantastic TV. I mean, I think it has it all. I think it's a perfect season of TV so far. Maybe my only complaint is that it runs through stories so quickly. You really have to
Hmm.
pay attention, which I like, but I understand when other people it might be overwhelming for them to keep up with. But I love that.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where it's like the last episode, Brittany comes to the group and she's like, I have an announcement. And it's like, my daughter and I have reconnected and she slept over. And it just, we've gotten to such a good place after not being on speaking terms. But we got none of the updates between those two things. And it's like she probably did film some of that and talk about it on camera, but they just didn't show it.
Okay, Gibson, I'm so glad you brought this up because I was like, wait, she explain the daughter situation and I just didn't
It
forgot
was
it
like
or something?
episode 2 playing pickleball with Heather. She was talking about how
Okay,
they aren't, but like that was
that was it.
for me, like it was like the premiere episode. Like we just so it's yeah, you're right. It's like there's so much to pack. Every episode could be a supersized episode. And Bronwyn's dog bite, again, it was a passing moment and she literally got mauled by a dog.
It's wild. It's wild. And even Yeah, all of the women are delivering in ways that I think normally by this point in the series run, they get a little lazier, maybe. The Housewives, what season is Salt Lake on?
Five.
Five. Yeah, usually by season five, I think some of the OGs might start to get
Yeah.
a little bored or a little not as engaged. And
Well, I
yet,
think that's what people thought about Meredith in the beginning of the season. And then here we go. She has the bat mitzvah,
Mhm.
kicks Angie out, gets kicked out of Mary's house. She has the Britney recording thing or whatever that happens later. Like Meredith is also clocked in.
No,
It
I
took her a
know.
minute.
And you wonder too, it's like maybe she was always clocked in, but like, of course, if they have so many things going on, they can't show what's going on with Meredith. Then early on in the season, they might have to wait to dole it out. But yeah, all of them. I don't want any of them to go. I don't think
No, me
there's.
neither.
I could maybe see a world where like a Whitney is a friend of or something
Yeah,
like
me
that,
too.
or even Heather is a friend of, like. But I don't want them going anywhere.
No, but I think it's one of those things where it's like maybe at some point, maybe like they did to Luann on New York. It's like sometimes I think
It's helpful.
it's helpful. It's almost a tool at their disposal to like do that, and then the person would come back the next season and like be re-engaged, reignited.
And I think it is good sometimes if like, and maybe it'll change throughout the rest of the back half of the season. But if like they don't have a lot going on in their personal life, I think it's great to be a friend. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, being a friend of. Much rather a housewife be like a friend of where they're coming on trips, but like not really exploring the personal story, than having a personal story that we're all just like, we don't give a fuck about that. Like, and
Right.
then we fall out of love with them. You leave
Yeah.
us wanting more, like Luann did that season, or
Yeah.
Portia when she stepped away, or like it's very actually helpful. And so I don't always think it's like should be a knock if we say like, oh, Whitney should take a season off, or this
I
person should
completely
be a friend
agree.
of. It's like, no, that'd be a good thing for their
And
fans too. Should
that's how
want
I
that.
feel about Brittany on the show. It's like I'm good with her being a friend. I like this level of engagement with her. I arguably we've had too much Jared Osman, so it's like, you know what? Let's keep it at this level.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. I don't want Brittany to go anywhere either. I like
No.
my sort of dream scenario path for Brittany is like the same that happened with Angie K, where she's just like a friend for a couple of years and then becomes so irresistible to us that we're like, no, we need her to get a snowflake.
I could see it. I really could see
I
that for
could too.
her if she plays her
I could
cards
too.
right.
I know.
All right, going over to Beverly Hills, Danny, Dorit versus Kyle. What do you where do you stand right now, kind of several episodes into the season? How are you feeling about that fallout and potential rebuilding?
I'm currently on Team Dorit,
Yeah.
subject to change, but
Okay.
currently on her side. I'm worried about the other women. Sometimes with Beverly Hills, I mentioned this on my show, where I feel like the other cast members just get lazy when they realize like the storyline is going to be that one thing. And you could almost feel it on the screen where it's like
Yeah.
everybody's just sitting around eating their whatever, enjoying it,
Watching it all happen. Yeah.
checking emails, watching it all happen. And it doesn't feel like they're letting it happen because that's an A story or something. It feels like they're letting it happen because they're like, oh, good, I don't have to get involved in this mess. And so I don't like that part of Beverly Hills because it feels to me like everybody else is like, oh, Dorit and Kyle got it. Their fight is going to be the centerpiece. We don't need to do anything else. I don't like that. But otherwise, I think it's always, I always find it more interesting to watch like a friendship dynamic, either fall out or re get together or something, than what we had been doing on these shows for so long, which was like that murder mystery
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
court case, legal drama, which was also thrilling. But a friendship breakup, I think, is like so relatable to everybody watching. I'm also still, even though I just said I'm on Team Dorit, I'm still skeptical about her in general. Like something feels a little off, whether it be with PK or Kyle or her behavior. But I'm enjoying it, and it feels like she's she's a little bit more like that Dorit I think we first got to know.
Well, yeah, that was going to be my follow-up question, Danny, which is like a little bit off, but like, hasn't there always been like something a little bit unexplained, about
Right, right.
so, and maybe eventually it comes to light, maybe it never does, but I do agree it feels like early vibes from her, and I'm maybe she's catching on because we saw the this thing with her and Sutton sort of boiling over, and like I agree about the other women sort of they latch on to the main thing, and it's like,
Thing.
okay, but like, and I love Sutton and Garcelle, but like how much like personal stuff have they shown, or how much have they been sort of central to the main storyline ever? You know what I mean? And so like they've because they do a really good job, and credit to them, of like pushing it onto other people.
Yeah, and being sort of like Statler and Waldorf. I think like Garcelle or Sutton to me gets a little more in the mix with the people than
Yeah,
Garcelle does. I feel like Garcelle does more of like stirring the pot from the sidelines, but yeah,
everybody has a
yeah,
role.
yeah, everyone has a role, but I don't I maybe I feel like they might need a wild card in there, like a someone a little extra unhinged, maybe. I would
Like
like
Lisa Rinna used to do. Yeah,
kind
exactly.
of I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you see the one that's on, is it tonight?
I
Is it
haven't watched. I saw a clip
okay?
from like the cowboy party or
Well,
whatever.
yeah,
What?
they show a clip
So you can tell me about it.
Of Sutton of calling or of Dorit
Camille calling.
calling Camille. So
Yes.
that was in the trailer and whatever. But it's like that whole scene, which I'm sure people will see.
Yeah, they
It
will.
shows Dorit in a way that was shocking to me. Like my jaw was on the floor. I was like, oh my God, I
Really?
can't believe she is just so, I don't know,
Okay. I mean,
not
there's definitely
censoring
a.
herself.
She's definitely taken the filter, a filter out. You know what I mean? And like,
Even just saying the see you next Tuesday, which on Beverly Hills, that was like a point of contention. Remember back in
right.
the day when it was like a necklace on Erica Jane or something like that?
Sure.
It was a topic of conversation. And so even just the fact that Dorit just so comfortably is like,
Hmm.
I don't care about that word anymore, which we are years away from when it first came up on Beverly Hills and it's sort of gotten into the lexicon. But I still think it's was shocking to just see Dorit have that filter completely off.
Yeah, completely. And then last thing about Beverly Hills, what do you make of like the general criticism of Kyle that she doesn't share enough? Like, it's interesting that like in the past year, she's almost become like this person that the Bravo internet seems to like universally not like. And I'm not on that boat because I'm like, but like we've had Kyle for so long and like she's given us so much. Like I can't get myself fully onto that boat. But how do you interpret that?
Well, I do think with all of these women, they go through those times on the internet and then you see like a year later everyone's like I always liked her, or so it
Yeah.
does change, like, and it'll change when they edit her
Yeah.
differently. And
Yeah.
I think every housewife has their good seasons and bad seasons. I with Kyle, I feel like she's so media trained that part of my frustration with
Sure.
her throughout sharing her authentic life is that she does it so calculated. And of course, she's was raised in this industry, and it almost feels like with the Mauricio or the Dreet, I'm just like watching her, and I'm like seeing inside of her head and thinking, oh, she's gonna dole this out slowly and make it last a couple seasons. And it might not even be conscious, but I think she's been in the media enough to know, like, oh, I'll give a little bit here, I'll give a little bit there. This season, I'll give a little bit. Even with the conversations where Dorit and Kyle keep saying, like, okay, we're okay now, but like we have another conversation we need to have.
Right.
And it's
Right.
like they
Right.
know what the fuck that means. It means that we
Yes.
can talk about it in a couple episodes. And so I
Uh-huh.
just feel like with Kyle, it's so apparent every time I see her, even when she is
Makes
being
sense.
authentic and crying about Mauricio or Dorit or her marriage or something. And that feels so real, but then she'll kind of hold a little bit in. And
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like as an audience member to me, like she's holding it in purposefully to protect herself. It feels like she's holding it in to dole it out
Prolong.
later.
Got it. That's totally valid. And that's probably very accurate.
Yeah, but she
All
knows how to
right.
give us good TV, and
Yeah.
I do want Kim to pop in. I
I
like need,
know. I
like
know.
I don't know why it's been
It
so
sounds like something's
difficult.
dark happening there though.
So I know, but why has it been so hard for them to get all three of them together?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, Kathy's had such a weird relationship with the show too over the years, and like she's back and doing the kooky thing, but
I
you
wonder
know,
if they pay Kathy the same as a main housewife. I feel like they do.
I bet you they do.
I bet you they do too, right? Even though she doesn't show kind of like those individual scenes, I guarantee she's making as much of, as somebody who would be a housewife, I think.
Well, it's one of those things where it's like I think, and it's been said, but like some of the best presences on these shows can be the women who don't need the show. That they're not doing it for the money, and like the next question is like, okay, so why are they doing it? Like why is Kathy Hilton signing up for this show? Is it really just to like support Kyle Richards, or is it like to like help build her own personal brand, or is it just I don't know? It's because it's probably not for the money, but she probably does get paid well.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah,
I wonder that too, but I don't know.
yeah.
It's I love watching her, but
Me
it
too.
is like
Me too.
why, but then also sometimes I think like maybe it's just like something to do.
That's
Like
kind
even with
of
Jennifer Tilly, sometimes I'm watching her and I'm like, I think she just wants something to do. Like,
her and her two
because
houses. Exactly.
and
Uh-huh.
it's more than you'll find out in the episode tonight. It's more than two houses. It's like a lot of houses, and she's so wealthy that I'm like, it must just be for fun. Even I was thinking that when they were explaining all of her houses on this week's episode and like how much money she has, and I was thinking with acting roles too. I wonder if sometimes she just takes acting roles because she's like, well, it's her passion or it's fun, but I
Right.
don't think
I
she
had to fill
needs
the
the
day.
money.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. um, so I was talking recently, Danny, with Cara Berry, who hosts Everyone's Business
Oh,
But
we love
Mine.
Kara.
We love her, and
She's
she
doing a
was.
live show this week. Is it this week or
I
next or
think. I
something?
think
Go
she's.
see her
Yeah,
live, people.
she's doing a live show and with Behind the
Kelly.
Blinds, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, and she did a thing on her podcast, which is like something you want to leave behind in 2024. And we were talking a little bit about Roni, and like she was like, you
Leaving
know,
that behind.
well, I didn't. That wasn't what I brought up, but she brought it up, and she was like, well, you and Danny seem to always want to like kind of find the silver lining or look on the bright side of a lot of this stuff, and especially in comparison to the rest of the Bravo internet. But she was like, when both of you were talking shit about Roni, that's when you know. And
Because we,
it's not that I want
yeah.
it to be bad. I don't want it to be bad. I want it to be great. It's just not
Right.
great,
No, and
right?
it behooves us all to say that it's not great because
Yes.
I felt like last season everybody was hyping it up and I didn't like it. I hated it last season, to be honest. And I mentioned it on my show a couple times and I got so many DMs and stuff of people yelling at me. And so I was like, okay, I'm just not going to talk about it at all
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
it's
not
like
worth
I don't
it.
want to argue with people. But in my head, I was like, why are we all pretending it's good? Because if when we pretend it's good, then they're just going to keep giving us the same and they're going to
Right.
think that it's good.
Right.
And I felt that way with last season of like that everybody was just pretending. But I think we all kind of gave them grace because we're like, oh, they're figuring it out. It's new
Right.
cast. And so I thought that last season was bad, but maybe it'll just take some time with them. But it's okay to say that it was bad. Like, I don't know
Yes.
why we're
Not
afraid to
every
say that.
Yeah.
And it's not saying that we have to bring the OGs back or
No.
anything like that, or we're not able to move on from the OGs. It doesn't mean anything like that. It just means like I'm watching a shitty TV show
Yeah,
and I've
exactly.
always loved this TV show. And I think it's okay to say these are our complaints because we want it to be really good because we've seen how good these shows can be. And so I hope that they're listening now finally because it does seem like everybody universally is like, no, this is the shittiest show right now.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any getting around that. There might be a couple people still saying it's good, but
Yeah, there are a couple people,
even the
but
network knows it's bad. I think like, and from covering these shows that sometimes you could read between the lines and see scheduling things or the way they're doing press or the way,
sure.
or you hear from people who do press who are writing positive things about it and they're sending you messages saying, "Oh, I don't really think those,"
Yeah,
like, or I
exactly.
got hired to do this, or what,
Yeah.
those kinds of things.
Yes, of course.
So I think you can sometimes look at it and be like, no, even they know it's bad. So should I be pretending it's good?
Yeah.
Like I'm not getting
So
paid for them, so why am I gonna
no,
pretend it?
exactly. So because of that, I don't really care about getting into the nitty-gritty of the show right now, but like if you were a producer of The Real Housewives of New York, what would be some of the things that you would do to fix it?
Wait, by the way, I just want to go back because I feel like people might take out what I said out of context about like the
Okay.
paying for the things because I don't think Bravo was like paying influencers. I remember that
No,
was
I
like a
don't think so
thing of
either.
like
Yeah.
and I'm talking more about like the larger
No, it's a
um
common accusation though that people get paid and it's totally baseless because
yeah,
that doesn't
because people say
happen.
that to
Yeah.
us too all the time.
Yeah,
It's like,
all the
oh, you
time
got
because he
paid to
likes.
say that. I'm like,
Yeah, it's like,
no,
oh, you're on Margaret Joseph's payroll. Okay, yeah, no, I'm not. Yeah, thank you.
anyway, what was the last
What
question?
would you,
Sorry.
if you were a producer of The Real Housewives of New York, what would be some things you would do to improve it or set it on a better path?
You know, I mentioned this before. I read Ira Madison's Substack. We love
Yeah.
Ira, and he had recommended on there weeks ago about bringing Paige and Lindsay from Summer House over to the
Yes.
Real Houses in New York. And at my first sort of gut reaction was like, oh, what? Those two? And then when I thought about it, it did feel like a really smart idea to me. And
Yes.
because those two have a history, the audience of Bravo has a history with them. So it feels like we've spent a lot of time with them and there's an interesting dynamic because the two of them have been around each other for so long, but
Mm-hmm.
haven't been
Kind of
super close.
frenemies. Yep.
So I think that would make like an interesting sort of fork in the road if they added them to Roni. And then also, yeah, I think that would be a fascinating way to re-energize it and keep a couple of the people around.
Hmm.
But other than that, I also think it would be interesting to follow the lesbians on the show. Like I would much
Me
rather
too.
watch that. I love Mel and I love Jenna and like that their natural friend group to me would be more interesting than this weird chemistry that they have with the group now.
Yeah, it's authentic, and then real problems would probably pop up. It's not
Yeah,
like fabricated, whatever.
and I think it would be cool and interesting to see like a real L word version of
Yeah.
Roni.
Elworth
Like,
in New York. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, like that would be fun. So
Yeah.
I wish
Okay.
they would do that. And then because the Bryn stuff is getting uncomfortable for all of us
Yeah.
with like the sex stuff, and we're all like enough with that.
It's overplaying.
I don't know. There are the group in general is just weird chemistry. So I don't even know who I would keep. Like if we did the Paige and Lindsay situation, which I don't actually think Bravo would ever do, but
Yeah.
if we did that, I'm like, well, who would we keep from the old one? I don't know.
Aaron. Aaron to me is the best housewife on there, to be honest,
Yeah,
even
yeah,
though it is like,
I kind of agree with you, even though I don't really like Erin, to be honest with you.
but
Watch,
she's good at,
but
but
I
she's pretty
feel
good at
like,
her. She's compared to her peer, she's pretty good at her job, I would say. Like she's actually sharing things. She's like a little bit more dynamic and you know,
and Upa's sort of like a chaos agent that week to week, I'm like, I either feel one way or another
right.
strongly. And sometimes I think
But
like
at least you
Uba,
feel something, you
yeah,
know?
and I'm like, well, Uba at least is like doing something. Like I feel
Yeah,
like Uba's like sort of
valid.
activated in a way that everybody else isn't. And so even though a lot of the times I'm like, Uba girl, what are you doing?
Yeah,
Then other times I'm like, well, at least she's working. She's clocking in.
you're right.
Whereas the other ones are just sitting there like bumps on a log. I'm like, perk up, wake up.
Potomac, Danny. You're watching Potomac? Are you up to date on Potomac?
Yeah.
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 So
I think I'm
I
like a week behind me. Or
okay,
no,
but
maybe I'm
just
caught up.
yeah, we can talk generally, but like I feel like, it's back to being fun and funny and light. I'm laughing with them a lot. Karen and Giselle are in great form. Like that's sort of what I'm like. I feel like it's like teetering on being like a little bit uneventful and boring, but like I think I'd rather have that than the season we got last year. You know what I mean? I'm still enjoying it more. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I feel a little more confidence in Potomac for going forward with this
Yeah,
group than I
totally.
maybe do with Roni. Like I do agree it's kind of fun and easy watch. And there's like not a ton of drama, but I am captivated by all of the women and I'm not so bored watching their
Yeah.
scenes, even though there's not a lot going on. So I think like maybe next season it could be really good, but I don't feel like it's bad. I just feel like it's sort of there right now. And I still enjoy watching it where I don't feel like it's a chore to put it on. And then the only thing I would say, the Mia stuff, I'm not loving this. It just feels like
It's taking up too
clunky
much
or off
time and
or
yeah, and
something.
and sometimes you're just sort of like it's not that like we shouldn't be watching this. I wouldn't go that far. It just feels like,
But a little bit. I mean, a little bit with
yeah, I
the
know.
kids when the kids are in
Yeah,
the scenes. I'm like, oh, I don't like
I
this. Like,
know. I know. I
it just
know.
feels real in a way that doesn't feel fun. Real.
It feels real in a way that doesn't feel fun, but also like I'm like, we're not getting the full story, and so or like we're getting a fabricated story sometimes. I think from her, and so it's sort of like we're taking up so much airtime with this uncomfortable thing, and then we're also maybe not even getting an authentic version of it. So like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I've always loved Mia, and maybe that'll turn around. Because I was especially excited about that whole storyline this season. But maybe it's because it's like so front and center that it's a little off. But I'm also really loving Stacey.
Love. Oh my
Like she's
God.
so unique. I love when a housewife comes in there that I'm like, I would have never expected this personality to join.
Hmm.
Even it was like that with Sutton or with, I don't know. There's so many people throughout history where you're like, what's this person? Or
And this
Jennifer
is
Tilly,
new.
or
It's
I
like
don't know, because we're
we've had how many housewives over the past 15 years, and this is like a new
like, how'd they find a
energy.
person like
Yeah.
this? Or remember when Carol and Heather and Aviva came on?
Yes.
I'm like, oh, who are these people? And then like, oh my gosh, how'd they find such random people?
And you can see, and like you said, sort of thinking forward, you can see a world in which Stacey like feels a little more comfortable in the reality TV realm off of QVC, because I feel like she kind of has a little bit of that still. And like just like it adds color to this Potomac world that we're in, and I think that that's a good thing.
And there's a little something with Stacey where I don't know if she's fully self-aware, and I think
Definitely
that
not.
bodes well for her
No.
in terms of
My
us
favorite kind of
watching her.
housewives. My favorite kind of
Yeah.
housewives have lack a little bit of that. So
Yeah, yeah. Like I don't know that she sees how her relationship or any of that stuff is coming across, and that makes me feel like, oh, that's going to be
yes,
good for the future. And it's the
absolutely.
same with Orange County with Jen Pedranti, where I'm like, oh my God, we
Yes,
we still have such a long life ahead of us with her. Like she
thousand
doesn't even.
percent.
I don't even think she's self-aware of like how her everything's coming across. But I'm like, we have so much with her. We
Well,
have at least 2, 3 years with her.
it's like we're thinking ahead, but I kind of like it when they don't think ahead.
How
Okay,
many?
last,
Wait, can we
but
just make a prediction right here?
yes,
How many good seasons of television do you think Jen Pedranti has in her?
at least five,
Wow.
maybe
Wow.
maybe seven. Like
Wow.
what would take away from that with her? You know what I mean? Like pulling herself out because things got too real. I don't. She is
Yeah.
feels like she's in it for the long haul.
Yeah. I agree.
Do
I
you?
think we do.
Okay,
Yeah.
five to
I
seven.
think when
That's a
did
long time.
I was trying to do math in my head, which this makes me sound crazy. And I guess we're all crazy here talking about housewives.
Yes.
But I was trying to do the math of like when did all the Erica Jane stuff start with the dissolution of Tom? Because I remember at the beginning of that thinking like, oh, we're going to be here for a few more years, and we're
It's still
still
in the
kind of
air.
a
Yeah, it's
little
been
bit
like
there.
at
It's mostly
least
done,
three
but
seasons of that. I feel like we're maybe in the
3 or 4,
we're in the
right?
third or fourth. Yeah. So and Erica's been around for so long. Like I think she's like one of the longest running ones outside of Kyle, maybe.
Yeah. So I think with at least Jen and the husband, they're married now, right? I already forgot. I've already forgotten. No,
No,
they're
they're not
engaged.
married yet. They're engaged.
But I think so. We probably have at least 4 more years just with the
Yes,
marriage
just
stuff.
based on the yeah, exactly.
And not to say
Okay.
that it's the same situation as Tom Girardi, but
No, yeah, I
math-wise,
know
that's
it.
how it's working in
Yes.
my head.
Danny, last show I want to ask you about before we sign off is Southern Charm. We've only seen two episodes, but the I like Molly, the new
Oh,
girl,
I love Molly.
and the thing with Whitney at the very end of the episode was like,
Ugh,
fuck you, Whitney. Like
I
that was
know.
bad. That was bad when he made the cupcake comment.
Also, it's shocking because he created the show and produces it, and it's like, uh,
Why does he
uh,
keep putting himself in these positions?
it's
No.
like you don't have to do this show. Like, I don't know. And also, it's just crazy. But yeah, awful. And he looked like Lisa Rinna. So that animal print. Not that I should talk about his looks, but since he commented on Molly's, I just would say Lisa Rinna's a gorgeous gal. But I I don't know. I just hate Whitney. But I do love Molly.
The blonde hair was tough. Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, it was yes. But I love Molly. It does feel like on Southern Charm they're just miking up anybody,
I
and
know.
I don't love that because I'm like, who are these people? Who's in the main cast? And it felt that way a little bit last season too. But it's like Leva's not even around, but she's a main cast member, and then they keep bringing. They're like, oh, this person slept with Shep, and then this person. I'm like, who are all these people? Like, we need to cut down the cast, or then you have these two gays that are throwing the dog party, and I'm like, wait, we barely met him before. Is that a main cast member? Or, like he was barely in last season and now he's
Hmm.
throwing the party, but then not seen for 3 episodes. And so it's like, who are all these people? Stop miking up everybody.
I know, and it's sort of like they're on this sort of like trend of like it's a show basically about Craig Austin and Shep and then Madison, and then they bring in these sort of like younger females who have hooked up with them in the past for like a season or two, and then they just sort of rotate out. And it's sort of like that's not it's either going to get old after a while or like I want more investment in these people.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something controversial, and
Say it.
I've always loved Southern Charm, but it's feeling a little long in the tooth to me, and
Hmm.
it needs, I think, some sort of refresh or something bigger than what they've been doing in between seasons. Not a full reboot, but I don't know. There just needs to be, or maybe even like a creative refresh or something. Just something is feeling long in the tooth to me. But even I love watching them. I'm not completely bored, but something feels off to me. And I love watching Craig grow up and mature. And
Hmm.
it's fun to me to watch the other people get so pressed that he's like matured,
Yeah.
like
He
Austin
like
and
doesn't want to
Shep.
drink every night. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think the whole season, this whole thing about like Austin and Shep feeling like Craig's uh, putting on a front or whatever. I'm like, well, Craig's just growing up and maturing. Like you should all want that. But maybe I'm wrong about Craig because I've been wrong about Craig in the past. I loved him and then I hated him and now I love him again. And so we've been on a roller coaster with Craig. I don't know.
I don't think you're wrong about Craig. I don't. I One of the things that, and the last thing is like Madison to me is like such a good reality star. She's very good at this, but like she doesn't have enough to work off of in
Oh,
this
you're
group
right.
right now. Like she can go toe to toe with the guys, but like whatever. I'd love to see like her have a, substantive adversary or somebody to just at least like play off of.
And I think we got a lot of dead weight on there that we just need to like why is Leva in the main cast? Like cuz she's got a spin-off show, she's not involved with any of these people. Why let's give that money to somebody, like from budget wise.
Right.
She's been on the show a couple years. She's not getting anything in this show. Nothing's happening with her. So why don't we use that money, free up that money to bring in someone more dynamic or something? Like I think the way that producing wise and feels weird to me.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Well, Danny, this has been so fun. You have so much going on. Do your plugs before we sign off. So just the various projects you have going on.
Thank you. People can get my books wherever books are sold. There's a holiday collection. And then Deck the Walls is my movie. It's on Hallmark Channel throughout the holiday season. So it's going to be, I don't know when this podcast is airing, but
End
it'll
of this
be
week.
on.
Yep.
Okay. So it'll be on Saturday. People can record it. It's weird how they live now because it's airing on the network, but then it's on like Peacock for a minute. And then I don't know. So just look for Deck the Walls. There's also like dark web links where you can watch the whole thing that I'm not
Oh,
supposed to
really?
share, but they're
Oh.
online if you Google
Hmm.
it.
Okay, well, that's actually a good
But
tip because
watch it on the network.
I have it set to record on my parents' Xfinity account, but I'm like, I didn't know
Tell
it was on
Hallmark.
Peacock.
Yeah,
Yeah,
tell
okay.
Hallmark to hire me again. It's on Hallmark Demand too, but not their streaming service or something. I don't get it. But tell
Interesting.
Hallmark you want me back for next year.
We will.
Um, and yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, I'm
I
excited to have
love
this
it.
holiday season to relax a little bit. But the Paris and Nicole thing is such a fun little holiday binge too, right? It's like an
Oh,
easy.
completely. And it's like, yeah, like I would have loved if they'd fleshed it out a little bit more, probably. But like ultimately, it's like I'm not going to complain about having Paris and Nicole together back on my screens. You in the mix. That's that's good. That's good for me.
Hopefully I think they should do more. I think it'd be really fun. And I think they need I would love to see them going out into the world and doing more of those jobs and stuff because it's just fun to watch them
Oh,
interact. And
it's the
I know they
best.
might not want to do the full series like they did originally, but it's like, just give us these little specials all the time. That'd be
Absolutely.
fun.
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Well, Danny Pellegrino, you're the best. Oh, do you want to say one more thing
Oh,
before
I
we sign
love you.
off?
No, I was just going to say
Oh,
thank you so much for having
oh,
me.
say it. Okay. Danny,
Love
happy
everyone.
holidays.
Happy
Thank you so
holidays. Merry
much.
Christmas, all
Yeah.
the things.
I want to gab.